Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into something truly mind-blowing, accidental historical discoveries that just completely changed our understanding of the past. Some of the absolute biggest paradigm shifts in human knowledge didn't actually come from meticulously planned academic expeditions. Nope. They came from sheer, unfiltered serendipity. So, think about it. What actually happens when a simple accident completely rewrites human history? We kind of tend to think of science and archaeology as these very rigid, predictable processes, right? But sometimes the greatest leaps in our understanding happen when someone is out there looking for one thing, and they accidentally stumble upon something else that completely shatters the existing historical consensus. Let's dive right into this and look at the exact moments where history was flipped completely upside down. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be unpacking 4 massive historical shifts: ancient hunting in the lakes, the deepest ancient shipwreck, the extinct fish returns, and China's hidden Terracotta Army. Let's jump right in. Section 1. Ancient hunting in the lakes, a sonar scan surprise. Okay, picture this. The year is 2007. Archaeologist Dr. Mark Hawley is out in the freezing, incredibly deep waters of Lake Michigan. He's on a fairly standard mission, using sonar technology to scan the bottom of the lake, simply looking for a relatively modern shipwreck that had been missing for years. But instead of the chaotic wreckage of a ship, an entirely different secret pops up on his sonar. He sees this perfect 1-mile straight line of large stones, just sitting there on a flat, sandy lake bed. Dr. Hawley actually put on his scuba gear and dove all the way down to see it for himself, and it was immediately clear that these stones were placed by human hands. I mean, nature just doesn't build perfectly straight lines like this. He followed the line, and it led to a perfect circular formation of stones, situated right next to a massive, deep trench. Well, when news of this broke, the media went into an absolute frenzy, speculating that this was some sort of 10,000-year-old underwater Stonehenge built for spiritual or religious purposes. But Dr. Hawley wasn't entirely convinced by the whole underwater Stonehenge theory. And then in 2009, an anthropologist from the University of Michigan named John O'Shea published a paper about a remarkably similar stone line discovered about 300 kilometers away in Lake Huron. This shifted the entire paradigm. These weren't spiritual monuments at all. They were actually drive lines, basically highly practical genius stone structures created by ancient native hunters thousands of years ago to manipulate and funnel animal movement patterns. So, how did this actually work? Well, early hunters in North America relied heavily on hunting a large animal called the caribou. And caribou have this very specific, quirky behavioral trait. They will naturally follow straight lines or paths. So, step 1, hunters built these 1-mile straight stone lines, which the caribou would just docilely follow. Step 2, these lines acted like a giant funnel, leading the animals directly into that circular stone trap we mentioned. And finally, step 3, hunters would be hiding right behind the stones of the circular trap. Because the trap was built right up against a deep trench, the animals literally had nowhere to run. They were totally trapped, allowing the hunters to ambush them easily. This wasn't just a random pile of rocks. It was an incredibly advanced piece of ancient landscape architecture, custom designed for survival. All right, moving on to Section 2, the deepest ancient shipwreck. Digging for oil, finding the past. Fast forward with me to the year 2023. A British oil and gas company is scanning for new fields about 55 miles off the coast of Israel. They're using this advanced robotic vehicle sitting a full mile below the surface of the Mediterranean Sea. Now, the engineers were expecting to see absolutely nothing but normal sand and rocks on their monitors. Instead, the robot transmits images of a strange mound on the seafloor. When they looked closer, there were hundreds of ancient clay pots and jars just half buried in the sand. They immediately called in the Israeli Antiquities Authority to help solve the mystery. By sending a specialized robot down, they realized these jars were piled right on top of the wreckage of a 40-foot wooden ship. The robotic arm carefully extracted a few of these really delicate jars, which researchers believe most likely held olive oil, agricultural products, or wine, and carefully brought them to the surface. Now get this, when they carbon dated the materials, the results absolutely blew everyone's minds. 3,300 years old. Finding an ancient shipwreck is one thing, right? But finding one this old, resting a full mile deep in the ocean, that makes this the deepest ancient shipwreck ever found in recorded history.
To really put into perspective why this breaks existing historical models, you have to consider the Mediterranean Sea itself. It spans a massive 1 million square miles and is notoriously known for extremely dangerous wave conditions. Before this accident, historians really didn't think ships from 3,300 years ago ventured out into the deep, treacherous open ocean. The assumption was just that they hugged the coastlines to stay safe. But this discovery proves the exact opposite. It proves the existence of highly advanced ancient navigation technology. It shows us that sealers from over 3,000 years ago possess the skill, the shipbuilding capabilities, and honestly the bravery to survive extreme open water conditions. And we gained all of this knowledge just because an oil company was out there looking for gas?
Section 3. The extinct fish returns, the catch of a lifetime. Okay, let's head over to a cold morning in December 1938 off the coast of South Africa. An ordinary fisherman is just out there doing his daily routine, dragging his nets, when he pulls up an unprecedented scientific anomaly. The creature in his net is called a Coelacanth. Fossils show that the Coelacanth species originated about 400 million years ago, but around 65 million years ago, the fossil record for this fish completely stopped. Science firmly believed that when the asteroid hit and wiped out the T-Rex, the Coelacanth was wiped out too. It was a closed book. That is, until our fishermen pulled up a live, glowing blue, 5-foot-long Coelacanth. Fish experts seriously couldn't believe their eyes. It was quite literally like catching a living ghost. Guys, the Coelacanth is practically an alien compared to normal fish. Instead of delicate, flexible fins, the Coelacanth has 4 fleshy, bony fins that it moves in an alternating pattern, almost like a horse walking. And normal fish usually hunt with their eyes, right? Well, the Coelacanth lives in the pitch-black deep sea, so it uses a special organ near its nose to detect the faint electric waves of its prey. And here's my absolute favorite fact. Instead of a standard brain, its skull is filled with 99% fat, which acts as a shield against the crushing deep-sea pressure. Finally, while most fish lay eggs, the Coelacanth develops its eggs internally and gives birth to live young. It is a true evolutionary marvel, entirely hidden from us until that fateful day in 1938. Finally, Section 4, China's hidden Terracotta Army, a well that unearthed an empire. Let's set the scene here. We are in the small village of Shaoyang, China, in the year 1974. A really severe drought is devastating the entire region. Crops are dying, and desperate local farmers are digging into the earth just trying to build a well to find water to survive. After 3 grueling days of digging, at about 15 feet deep, a farmer named Yang Jifa swings his shovel and strikes something hard. He clears away the dirt, and staring back at him from the dark earth are 2 eyes on a human head made of clay. He brings it back to the village, but rather than celebrating, the villagers are absolutely terrified. In their local beliefs, statues emerging from beneath the earth are seen as a terrible omen. But when the Chinese government catches wind of this and officially begins excavating the site, the true scale of what Yang Jifa's shovel had hit was finally revealed. It wasn't just one statue down there. It was over 8,000 of them. They had accidentally unearthed the immortal army of China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, built to protect him in the afterlife. And these definitely weren't mass-produced identical figures. Every single one of these 8,000 clay soldiers had totally unique facial features, different hairstyles, and varying uniforms based on their rank. They were even holding real, functioning brass weapons. Today, it is widely considered one of the greatest and most valuable archaeological discoveries in the history of the world. But there is a pretty tragic irony to this whole incredible discovery. While the world gained an ancient wonder, the poor farmers of Xiangyang saw their initial fears of a bad omen tragically realized. The government, in order to build the massive museum complex that houses the Terracotta Army today, seized the land and displaced the very villagers whose desperate search for water uncovered the empire in the first place. They ultimately lost their homes and their farmland in the wake of their own historic accident. So all of this leaves us with one massive question. What other historical secrets are buried right under our feet, just waiting for the next accidental discovery? From underwater hunting traps to deep-sea shipwrecks, from living fossils to hidden clay armies. The history of our world isn't just sitting statically in textbooks. It's down there, waiting to be stumbled upon. Thank you so much for diving into this analysis with me. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and I'll see you in the next explainer.